thank you so much for coming out today. Hey, before we get started, I'm John Morgan. I'm Sales Enablement Manager with Netradyne, and this is Dave Besterfeldt. He's with Altom Transport, and today we're going to talk to you about how to get drivers on board with in-cab camera systems. So we know that there's a perception out there in the marketplace that drivers don't always like having a camera in the cab, and we're going to talk about some of the strategies that you can use to get drivers on board. But before we get started, I want to take a quick poll in the audience here. How many folks are actual drivers in the audience? Got 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. And how many folks are in either operations or safety or fleet management and that type of role? Okay, so most of the audience here. So first, I want to say, thanks for coming out, and thanks specifically for all the drivers for the work you've done over the last couple years. It's been a challenging 2 years, and you guys have really held, your own in making sure the country runs smoothly. And just from the bottom of our hearts, we want to thank you for your effort. You've really done a yeoman's work there. So I don't know if you got any other comments there.
Same thing. It's obviously Altom Transport runs a significant operation with a lot of drivers and everything, and we greatly appreciate everything that they do and all the drivers that are out there working so hard that have worked through this crazy pandemic. It's thanks just isn't enough sometimes, but thank you for everybody that's out there driving a truck.
Yep, awesome. So before we get started, let's see if this works. There we go. So we're going to play a little number game here. We've got a $25 gift card. This is going to cause you to use your brains here, so apologies. You're going to have to do maybe even a little bit of math. We've got a couple numbers up here. 2002, 20, and, whoop. Oh, I gave the clue away. And at 103 and 59. Does anybody in the group here know what these numbers mean? And it can be anybody walking around too. You don't have to be sitting down. Any ideas what these numbers mean? And there's a little clue there. It's a tough one. I'll give you a hint. 103 and 59, if you add those two numbers up, that gives you a little bit more insight into what these numbers have in common. Anybody know what that adds up to? 162, baseball. So 2002, 20, and 103, 59. And that's a little clue in the corner there. Somebody might know it. I didn't give you the whole logo. Any takers? No? I'll give you another hint. Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. Who said that? Moneyball. There you. Everybody see the movie Moneyball? Yeah, great movie, right? And so let me build this. So the interesting thing about Moneyball, did we get? Yeah, good. Okay, congratulations. All right, that's a tough one. But if you've seen the movie Moneyball, and I actually had a chance to meet Billy Beane in person, and I asked him about sabermetrics because at the time that Billy, put in sabermetrics with the Oakland A's, it was very poorly received with his management staff. His players revolted. Nobody liked it. Baseball is a very human game, and it's by gut and feel. And Billy really tried to put in a data-oriented system into the Oakland A's. And it's amazing what they pulled off by using data to get smarter at what they do. The Oakland A's had a payroll of $41 million compared to the Yankees of $125 million. They had the third lowest payroll in the major leagues, and they were able to have the best record in the major leagues for that year. And it just goes to show when you use data and you use insight to get better at what you do, it has a huge impact on the organization. And I love this quote: "We didn't solve baseball, we reduced the inefficiency of our decision making." So we're going to use some of those. What Billy did to bring Moneyball into the Oakland A's are great strategies to get your drivers on board with in-cab cameras. I got one more slide before we get into this. This actually, if Billy Beane and the A's had an amazing season, this team right here absolutely rocked it. This is the Marymount All-Star team. You can see me on the right-hand side of the corner. This team went 3-8 in 2011. It was a hot mess, and it was, a lot of it had to do with me, right? I was a new coach, and I thought if I just sat there and told the girls what to do and barked at them like they were little soldiers and moved them around on the chessboard, that they would all fall into place and we would have a great season. And it wasn't until I had a coach that came up and watched what I was doing and just, he was like, John, if you keep doing this, these girls are going to be run out of the program. And this guy came in and he gave me some pointers about how to run a team and how to get everybody to rally around a common cause by using fun games and just communicate why we're doing this, right? I thought if I just told them what to do, that they would all fall on board, and it's just, that couldn't be the furthest from the truth. And I think there's a lot of lessons in youth sports. Does anybody coach youth sports in the audience here? Any coaches? Couple here? All right, yeah, so I think sports is a great metaphor for what we're trying to do with our drivers, and you'll hear some sports themes weave through this presentation. So let's get underway. We'll start with the first one. This is number one, and it's number one for a reason: transparency. And Dave, I don't know if you want to talk about kind of what you've done at Altom and how you've been transparent with your drivers and what effect that's had.
Yeah, I think that there's some apprehension when we first introduced cameras to drivers. The initial reaction was, why do you need the camera in the cab? And then the second one is, are you watching me? And the first response to that was, listen, we're putting in the cameras, they're looking out your window, and we want to see what's going on out there, because there's a lot of activity in front of a truck that happens, and there's a lot of accidents that happen, and then there's litigation that happens, and then there's lots of money that you give away, and a lot of it unnecessarily. So the first thing was, we wanted to tell the drivers, hey, look, we want to put cameras in here, we wanted these things to look for, we want to see what's going on out there. And honestly, we had drivers that already had bought cameras off the shelf someplace that were putting them on their dashboards. So, I think it was important for us to just be transparent with them. Here's what we're doing, here's how we're doing it, here's how we're going to start it, and get them involved in it. So let them ask the questions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And start with why, right? I think it's so important. A lesson I learned in youth sports, especially with girls coaching. If you don't start with why, everything else falls apart. And communicate your goals, what you're trying to accomplish, and communicate that in an open and transparent way. And I think you'll have a lot of success getting your drivers to understand why you're doing this as a company, because it's good for the company, it's going to be good for the drivers. The next one is explain how it works. And especially with new technology that's out there in the industry with artificial intelligence and object detection, and these are essentially supercomputers that are watching the road and helping your drivers make better decisions and actually prevent accidents from happening. And explaining how that works, what's going on, is critical if you want to get the drivers to buy into it.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it, when we talked to the drivers, they had already, some of them had experienced their own onboard cameras, and they weren't really certain as to what the complexities were or the advantages of the camera that they had. They just knew they had a camera that was doing some recording. And then to go in and talk to them about the newest technology that's available today, how it works, the features, the benefits of it, a lot more information, and that goes a long way with the drivers.
Yeah, and go into detail, right? So you've got video, and talk to them about how the video works, and how if you store it, and how long you store it for, and what are you going to do with that video, and how is it going to be used in coaching and performance. The more that they know, the more comfortable they'll feel with it. There's a famous author, Simon Sinek, that started, he made millions of dollars with the concept of start with why. And he said more information is always better, even if it's bad information, because when you're kept in the dark, that's when resentment grows. And so, transparency, shed the light on the cameras and how they work, and you'll get much better feedback from the drivers. And ask for feedback.
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest things for us was to get drivers. We have quarterly safety meetings, so we bring all the drivers in all of our terminals around the country and Canada, and we ask them, hey, listen, we're going to put these in. We want some feedback from you. What are your questions? What questions do you have? And a lot of them have great legitimate questions. Who reviews the data? How often, do you review it? Who stores this? Where does it go? What are you going to do with it? We wanted some feedback from them to understand what their concerns were and what perhaps they wanted to see. Was there something about the technology that they were interested in? So we gave them a lot of opportunity for feedback.
Yeah, and this can be done in, blind surveys, anonymous feedback, one-on-one coaching sessions. Not everybody's comfortable to get up in a group and kind of tell you what they're thinking about cameras, especially if they're coming down from management. But, solicit that feedback in whatever way that you can. Get open and honest communication lines established with the drivers, and that just, it goes a long way to lessening any resentment that you have there. And then give them a reason to care, the what's in it for them, because at the end of the day, these cameras have a ton of value for the drivers. They have a lot of value for the companies, but they have a ton of value for the drivers. And I don't know if you want to have any examples there.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we did in our quarterly safety meetings with the drivers is we bring them all into a room, and usually what we'll do is we'll play a video playback of something that happened. And I'll give you a simple example of a truck that was going down expressway, and an on-ramp and a car came in the on-ramp, and you can clearly see that the car just comes and just pulls right into our lane, hits our truck, and of course an accident occurs, the police come, and the guy says, Altom did it. Hey, the guy ran right into me. And it's so simple for us to say, okay, let's view the video and show you. And of course that solves the problem right there. So the driver's like, wow, I'm glad that camera's in there. I'm off the hook. I didn't do anything wrong. So they do care about it.
Yeah, and I think I was talking to one of your colleagues, Nick, about a driver that somebody had hit him kind of on the rear, back left rear, and it was a staged accident, right? So once the accident occurred, 3 other people got into the car, and they were all injured, by the way, right? And then the police officer came, and the driver brought him into the cab and was showing him the video, and all 3 of those guys just took off running. And staged accidents are the #1 insurance fraud scheme going right now. And drivers need to know how to react to it. Companies need to coach their drivers how to react to it. And cameras are just a great reason to exonerate your driver. That's what they're there for, right? They're there to protect your driver, to protect the company. Oop. And recognize good driving. So I call this the honor roll slide here. And my wife is an English teacher in Walnut Hills High School. If anybody's from Cincinnati, Ohio, it's a great high school. You got to test into it. And she taught English for the longest time, and she realized how important it was to recognize students. And I got to tell you this funny story before I go any further. She every quarter would write up the A and B honor roll students, and she had a girl in her class who she affectionately nicknamed Crazy Mary. And Crazy Mary got up, and she took the piece of chalk and she wrote her name on the B honor roll. And my wife said, well, Mary, you're failing my class. You can't put your name up here. And Mary said, that's the problem with this school. You don't have an F honor roll. and it was just telling, but so my wife worked with her and encouraged her to get better, incremental improvements. And by the last quarter, that girl worked so hard to get her name up there. It brings tears to my eyes. I mean, so recognition goes a huge, huge way to get drivers to feel like they're part of a team and really improve their performance on their own.
Yeah, we do an announcement through our PeopleNet system, so we do onboard communication to our drivers. So when there's a lot of good things going on, we're constantly communicating to our drivers. telling them about other drivers that, that have done these good things, done these wonderful things, and recognition for, just a job well done, in a tough environment. I mean, you're out in a truck and there's traffic flying in 88 directions, and you're doing the things that are needed to be a safer driver, and slowing down well in advance, seeing something happening in advance, and taking action. It's a great thing, and sharing it with other drivers. When you got a bunch of drivers in a room, there's 60, 70 drivers in a room, and you're applauding these guys that did this really above and beyond job. It's great, and the drivers love the recognition.
Yeah, and I think the one thing there might be a misperception, especially as technology advances in this industry. A lot of the cameras that have been in place have been event-based or trigger-based, hard turns, hard brakes, and that's really what they're looking for. And when that's the only data set that you have, the coaching and feedback to the driver is going to be around those negative events. But now with the technology that's out there, these camera systems can recognize great driving. They can detect objects. They can detect when a car cuts in front of you and the driver slows down to create space, and it'll award that driver positive points, right? So we're looking at overall scores and kind of where the driver is falling against the rest of the fleet, and the cameras are smart enough to say that was good driving, and we're going to reward that. And so when you have a system like that, you can start your coaching conversations with a positive reinforcement statement rather than always focusing on the negative. You want to advance it for me? I don't know if this is working anymore. And use gamification. So Jack Herman, the coach, the soccer coach that kind of taught me how to coach youth sports, he was a huge fan of games. And in fact, he didn't coach. There was no line drills. There were no real instructions, or just, hey, here's a game and we're going to play a game. And it was amazing to see how the kids took ownership of their own development just by playing games. And it seems like we're in corporate America and we're driving vehicles, and how do we play games? But it's little things, right? It's something as small as having your driver compare themselves to other drivers in the fleet, or maybe it's awarding them a $25 gift card for improved performance or being at the top of the leaderboard. And you'll be amazed at how that drives human performance. There's a line, I'm going to go back to Moneyball, in Brad Pitt. If you've seen the movie, there's a quote in there, and it just struck home. He said, "I hate losing more than I like winning, and there's a difference." And when I heard that, I'm like, oh my God, that's me. I hate to lose. I like winning, but I hate to lose more than I like winning. And so you'll find drivers will get on board real quick when they see their name on the leaderboard, and just something simple to that, like that. Yeah. And empathize. I don't know if you got any comments on this one. I know it's big.
Yeah, I think that anybody that's been out there and driving a truck, or anybody that's running a fleet of trucks, you have to empathize with them and the job that they've got to do every day. They're out there driving these trucks. They're running hours. They're approaching places that are difficult to get in and out of. I mean, there's a lot going on in their day every day, and with additional regulations and things, it's like, oh my gosh, this job has gotten more problematic, more complex. And I think our approach has been, hey, look, we understand the job that you got to do every day. We want to do everything we can to make it simpler for you. We want to do everything we can to make it safer for you. And part of that is obviously the camera systems that we're putting in the trucks. And with this, we're telling them, look, we understand what you're going through every day. We want to help protect you. We want to help you understand what you're facing every day, and help you understand how well you're doing. If you've got an area that you think you want to improve on, hey, we can set it up for you. We can set it up and score it for you. So by empathizing with them about the position that they're in, the job that they've got to do every day, we're telling them, hey, we care. We care about what you're doing. We care about your day from start to finish.
Yeah, and the drivers have such a high pressure job, and I think at the end of the day, I think empathy is probably one of the best traits people can have. It's a superpower, in my opinion, and one I try to work on every day. At least my wife tells me I need to. But when we can all relate as human beings and understand what everybody's trying to accomplish and empathize with the work that drivers are doing, it just goes a long way. It's not here as a punishment. It's not punitive. At the end of the day, it's to get drivers home safe to their families. So. And show them what you see. So I think this is important. This, in terms of sports development, this is such a huge deal here. Pete Carroll, I don't know if there's any Seattle Seahawks fans here, but Pete Carroll is probably the master at this. All professional sports, they watch film, they analyze game film. But when Pete Carroll in 2013, and then I think in 2014, he took his team back to the Super Bowl. They won it in 2013. There was a writer from the New York Times that went out to the Seattle Seahawks, and they wanted to see what Pete was doing different. And if you think about NFL teams and the way they run practice, it's repetition, repetition, repetition. We're going to run a play, we're going to do it again, we're going to run it again, and we're going to get as many reps in as we can possibly get. And Pete had a different approach, and it surprised me when I read it, but Pete, they would run a play, and then they would stop. And they would break out into their teams, and they would get the offensive linemen with their team, and they would get the defensive linemen, the quarterback, the tight ends would go with the tight end coaches, the defensive backs would go with the defensive back coaches, and then they would get their tablets out, and they would pull up the video, and they would analyze what they did. And they would get so detailed with the routes and, how did they do, what was the feedback, how did they run that route, and they would analyze it. They ran about 20 to 25% the number of plays in practice that most NFL teams ran, but they had performance at this level. So, it just goes to show what video can do, and that's what our systems can help you do. Whoop, there we go. I don't know if you have any comments.
Yeah, I think that, show them what you want to see. Again, I'll go back to our quarterly safety meetings with our drivers. Taking the examples of the videos that are taken in real life situations where things have happened and we've had accident avoidance. We've had drivers take defensive driving positions. Those things that they see, the drivers that haven't experienced it, they get to experience it live right there. They get to see what one of their fellow drivers went through. They get to see the accidents that happen. They get to see where we're not involved in the problem, but it came to us, and how we've avoided the litigation, again, avoided the problems, avoided a serious accident. And by showing them what you see, it goes such a long way.
Yeah, I love this quote here too. We had a driver with severe following distance. His driver score was 550, which is pretty bad. I brought him into the office to show him some videos, and it made me uncomfortable watching the videos. I was hitting the brake pedal under my desk. I just think that's great, because it really, that video brings it home. And this is pun intended, but sometimes we all have blind spots in our performance. We're doing something every day, and we just don't realize it until we see it. I just got back from Florida. I rented a car that had the lane detection departure warning, which is whoever came up with that idea, I don't know. And I thought I'm a pretty good driver, and it was from Tampa down to the coast of Florida, and I was probably in the car 35 minutes, and that thing went off 50 times, and my wife's sitting there saying, "What the hell are you doing? Stay between the lines." Half the time I'm signaling, or I'm not signaling, and I'm going over. But then having a week in that car and, starting to realize that, hey, I might have a problem here and I need two hands on the wheel. I probably shouldn't have a phone in my, looking down at where I'm going. And, I became a better driver just from those things. So we definitely have blind spots in our performance, and video helps there for sure. And empower, right? This is huge. Nobody wants to have a coach sitting over them, telling them what to do, how to do it, when to do it. Why not just give the visibility and the empowerment directly to the driver and let them take ownership of their own performance so that they can see what they're doing, how they're doing it. And today we can do it with automation, right? It doesn't have to be a coach sitting there and saying, "Hey, you need to improve upon this." automation can be delivered to the drivers to say, here's your driving performance, and let them take ownership of that.
Yeah, I think that's it's a critical thing to make sure that the drivers are empowered. Really, what you want them to do is be engaged, be involved in it the entire way through it, from the start of it, the installation, the learning process, using it, showing them, giving them some feedback on it, and then teaching them how they can utilize the systems, especially with the Netradyne system. You can utilize that system to score in so many different ways and help with driver behavior that they may not even know. They may not even know they're habitually following a little bit too close, or maybe we're rolling up to a stop sign and it's not a complete stop. So it can give them all kinds of feedback, and it empowers them to make the changes.
Yeah, and this is just one example of the quote, but we have drivers that tell, I mean, really senior tenured drivers that come up and say, thank you for giving us the visibility into driving performance. I was dead set against having a camera in the vehicle, but after I was able to see on my own, without a coach telling me what I was doing wrong and take ownership of it, it's a much better way to drive human performance when they take ownership rather than having that person have to, dictate that. And it's really the difference between the carrot and the stick, right? At the end of the day, we can get people to achieve, our targets by one of two ways. We can use a stick and drive them away from the bad behavior, or we can use a carrot and lead them to the behaviors that we want. And when you empower them through automation, applications that you can put on a phone to be able to see your driver score, you're much more likely to get the drivers to adopt that performance improvement rather than using a stick and punitive measures. Okay? Go one step at a time, go slow, and I'll let you take this one. I know you guys are doing this.
Yeah, it's literally, we do not go out and just install. We get 350 units between our two companies. We're not going out there and installing all 350 at once. Part of it's going one step at a time, going with the trucks, putting them in the trucks, letting the driver see them, installing them slowly but surely, letting guys get used to them, be acclimated with them, talk to each other about them, and doing it slowly is the ideal way, at least from our perspective.
Yeah, slowly and incrementally. Nobody likes change all at once, so this is a great way. Pick a couple targets, introduce them, get success, and then move to the next one. And I think you'll have much greater success. Use incentives.
This is fantastic, because at our quarterly safety meetings, we talk to the drivers because they're all entitled to safety bonuses, and the bonuses get rather significant. So the better job that they're doing driving, the better job that they're doing operating out there, the more bonus money that they get just for doing a great job out there on a daily basis. So there's huge incentives to our drivers. They get paid twice a year on safety bonuses, and literally, you can impact their safety bonus, and it can be a significant bonus, and it can be impacted if you want to be careless, you want to be reckless, and you're not going to do a good job. Well, you're not going to get that safety bonus, and likely if you keep up the behavior, you're not going to keep driving. But for those guys that want to do something, want to be safe and cautious about their approach to driving on a daily basis, and fix those little incremental things that they've got out there, then there's huge financial rewards from our company for them.
Yeah, money talks and BS walks, right? And if it's good for the company, it's good for the drivers, and you'll see that reflected in those types of bonuses. Yet reward improvement, I know we got a couple minutes here. Reward improvement, not just the top performers. Sometimes we look at the top performers, we want to reward them, but those folks that are kind of making incremental improvements, you have to reward those folks as well. You will see such team camaraderie when you bring the lower 20 to 30% up from the bottom and get them to feel like they're part of the team, because if you leave them out, they're going to leave. And then share success. I think this is huge. You want to share success across all of the organization. I know you touched on that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's critical. Once you go through a system like this, you put them in the trucks and you get the drivers involved, they share the success with each other. They do. They're sharing the success with each other, telling each other, hey, this thing works great. Here's what happened with me. It's phenomenal. We don't have to go out and go promote it. They self-promote it.
Yeah, for sure. And there's, and then the last one, I think we're at the end here. Yeah, final thoughts. You know, we live in a world, it's a litigious world. I drove down from Cincinnati here to Louisville, and I don't know if anybody's from Cincinnati, I ran by Blake Maislin, 444, 4444, the fighter, you know, looking at, are you involved in a big truck accident, elk and elk. I've seen billboards that have had a truck that said, is this the next serial killer? I mean, it's egregious, and it's a huge industry, and we have reptilian litigators out there that are trying to exploit companies, and so you have to protect yourself, and this is just one way that you can protect the fleets, you can protect the drivers, and you know, drivers will feel like it's an invasion of privacy, but if you take these 13 steps, you implement them thoughtfully with empathy, I think you'll find that the resistance is probably a lot less than you thought, and I think you'll find that your best drivers will come and thank you.
Absolutely, and I think that as a final thought on this, literally, if you've thought about putting cameras in your trucks, you know, the technology's there, and there's excellent technology. Obviously, we've chosen the Netradyne camera systems. It's phenomenal, and it's just installing those cameras have saved us so much money. They've easily paid for themselves 5 times over, just saving ourselves some litigation costs.
Awesome. So thank you very much for coming out and joining us today. If you would like to know more about Altom, we're in the West Wing. If you want to know more about Netradyne and the camera systems, we're also in the West Wing. You can find our booth. We've got some t-shirt from Altom and hats and some swag over here if you'd like some. And again, we want to say thank you to the work that you guys do and really appreciate you guys coming out.
Thanks for taking your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.